The first words when 5 doctors walked in to tell me I had a brain tumor in my ER room, I was by myself. I said, this is going to be the most amazing positive experience of my life. I'm going to help so many people through this experience, and this does not happen to someone like me in this way for no reason.
Bang. This for anybody that's trying to follow a dream. No holding back, you'll get it by any means. Idols on the wall, you cut out from magazines. Full of self-esteem, nobody can intervene. Ready for the shine, you never need in the shade. This is for the boss that never gave you a raise. This is for every time you ever tried to create and no one understood, they never gave you the space. Walking up to you, they trying to give you the crown. Look into your eyes and tell you one of us. Every time you turn around and face the crowd, be ready cause your time is now. It's my time, I thought they would've told you.
Hello and everybody, welcome to The Golden Rules. I'm your host, Tim Gray, and today, Justin Levenson's in the studio. For those of you that don't know Justin is an entrepreneur, current artist manager, almost 20-year music industry veteran. He served on countless board of directors. He's been a past president of some, mentor, about to start a podcast, I believe, future author, and one of my favorite human beings in town. He's also a cancer survivor, overall motivator, and has touched many, many people's lives here in Nashville, including mine. So thank you very much for joining me, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
It really means a lot to me. We're just getting this thing going, so you'll be my first guest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thanks for the kind words, too.
Absolutely. Well, for those of you that don't know him, I kind of wanted to go back and get the origin story. I know from when we met pretty much to this point, but I don't know about origin Justin. Where are you from, man? Like, how did this all come to be?
Yeah, so I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and music was a big part of my life forever, which I know. I'm really in Nashville because of music. Grew up and started playing piano early on. I remember my mom got me a little Casio keyboard and said, if you take lessons, we'll buy you a piano. And that grew, and I took lessons, and I took piano, and then all of a sudden I wanted to join the school band because in 5th grade, I would wait for the bell to ring, and I'd see the band practice. They let me join the band because I could play bells, because I could read the piano music. So there I was, like playing my little bells in the band, and that was the beginnings of this passion for performing music and for just having music in my life deeply. As I grew through high school, I really got into the world of percussion and both marching, orchestral, and Afro-Cuban and Brazilian percussion, which I've always thought is a little random because I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, but I love it. I went to school thinking I want to be a band director. And for the first several years of college, I would aspire to be a band director. And then I remember my first girlfriend in college, I would say, when I graduate, I'm going to move to some city with my drums, and I'm going to sink or swim. Well, that happened. It just didn't graduate. I ended up dropping out of college spring of my junior year. And in this kind of amazing chain of events, I quit the band that I quit school for, and I'm standing in my dad's office. I'm like, man, what did I just do? And he's like, relax, man. You're 21, you're smart, you're talented. Go to Nashville and party for the weekend, blow off some steam. So I did it. And by the end of that weekend, I had a friend who was up here going to school, and by the end of that weekend, I had a job teaching this high school band camp for 2 weeks, a gig with this rock band who probably didn't need a percussionist, but I knew somebody, and I got a gig. And all of a sudden, July 5th, 2000, I moved to Nashville.
Wow.
Yeah, it was this amazing chain of events, and I think we were talking about it earlier, but I was the young kid that would say, I'm going to play my drums in front of thousands of people. I just had this image, if you're sitting in a theater at night and you see the lights going up the stairs, I can see that image in my mind so clearly, and as a child, I would see that and think, that's what I want, that's what I want. As I got up here, one of the things I realized first off is, well, you got to pay the bills, buddy. And so, man, I was working through a temp agency. I was substitute teaching in the school district that I was teaching the drumline at. And then all of a sudden, one night I was setting up in this salsa club that used to be downtown in Nashville. And I was talking to the club owner. I was like, yeah, I got an interview at some place called BMI. A mom's friend got me or something. She goes, no, go to CSAC. It's more laid back. You can wear blue jeans. I didn't know what CSAC was or BMI was. I didn't know what they did. But I went in for an interview at CSAC. And I got hired as a part-time bill collector. So this is February 2001. I am, 22 years old, something like that. And I just got hired, and I was a bill collector. And I basically told this woman who hired me, if you teach me how to do this, I'll be the best every month and every quarter and every year. And I used to book my college band, and my dad can sell ice to Eskimos, so I think I can do this. And I did it. And so all of a sudden, I remember being at happy hour once, like soon after I got that job, thinking, I work in the music industry now, and all these people around me work in the music industry. This is cool. Even though I was like on the phone with radio stations and TV stations that hadn't paid their bills, so it wasn't exactly the red carpet vibe of the music industry, but it was a start. And it goes into one of the golden rules I've always thought about is have a mindset of mastery. And for me, it was, all right, I'm going to crush everything I could do. And crush meaning like do a really great job, or at least the best job I can do. And so at CSAC, I was a high performer in that role as a bill collector. And through that time, I remember I learned about, I was out at happy hour. It sounds like I go to happy hour a lot. Maybe I did then, but
That's part of the charm,
right,
of the industry. Right?
There was this place called Tin Roof that had just opened, and I was there, and I learned about this organization called Solid. And Solid was the first break for me of the ego attachment to self. And what I mean by that is like I was this little kid who wanted to play my drums, and all of a sudden I was going to join Solid, which was this music business program, right? And I was a controversial member. They didn't want to let me in at first because I didn't work full time, and I taught, and I was a percussionist. I performed, and thankfully they let me in, and I joined Solid. And for me, that was really like a fork in the road a little bit. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was me deciding I'd rather spend my hours learning and developing relationships with people in the music industry instead of teaching high school percussion in DeKalb County, Tennessee. And I thought, this is probably a better use of my time. And so as that progressed, I did another one of the rules that early on, this alumni Solid said, you just keep showing up. And that's why I tell people, just show up. Like, just show up and have a good attitude. Sure. And so I just kept showing up, which, as you know, that in that organization especially, you continue to get opportunities to do more.
They say more. It all the time. It's, as cliche as it might sound, you get what you put in.
100%.
Yeah.
You develop relationships when you're there, because guess what? If you don't show up, we're not going to meet.
Exactly right.
And so that propelled me into a leadership role in the organization. Mm-hmm. And we jumped in and started doing it. And I say we because it was definitely a team effort all the way around, and started executing some large events for Solid that were bigger at that time than the organization had ever done. That propelled even more growth in the organization, which put me in the place to be the president. So all of a sudden, I was elected president of the organization. I'd been working part-time at CSAC for 6 years. I knew that if I take this role, which I had already accepted it was going to mean that I couldn't go on tour. And that at the time was my real dream. I had dreams of being on a tour bus. And now it's just whatever, it's a bus. But at the time, that was really a shift for me, because I remember when I accepted the role, I thought, all right, I know I'm likely will get elected for 2 years, which means no tours. Mm-hmm. And before that, I'd been out and left CSAC for a few months at a time to go do a few big tours and kind of flirt with that dream I thought I wanted to do and execute. And I jumped into this presidency of Solid, and CSAC offered me a full-time role. And that was in the beginning of 2007.
So you were part-time for 6 years?
Yeah, for 6 years. I was a part-time bill collector. The whole while, freelance musician. I played at every single Mexican restaurant in this town, and with Latin bands and private parties and songwriters for years. And it was also the time I started getting a little burnt. And not burnt because I don't like music, but burnt on, do I really want this lifestyle of a freelance musician? And it was started to learn about the life, or the work-life balance, as I think it's referred to a lot. And for me, another big moment was driving down to play with the salsa band one night, and it was somebody's birthday. It was Tim's birthday. I remember thinking, man, I don't want to go do this gig. I'd much rather be at Tim's birthday party. This is going to go late. I don't need $85. Like all this negative talk about one of my favorite genres, favorite group of musicians to play with, but I was like, yo, check yourself, man. And that day, I decided, all right, I have 3 rules. I'm going to play for free if it's fun, play if it's great money, or great exposure. And that shifted. And that next year I played fewer gigs, made more money playing them, and they were all with large writers or artists. And it was starting to become fun as I continued to kind of figure out, what am I doing at CSAC? Do I want to be in this business role? And then we were talking earlier, but I call it the dissolution of the ego attachment to who I thought I was supposed to be. And that's not to say who I thought I was supposed to be is bad. It's just was right for me. And so then I started shifting to, I think I'd like to run big teams and lead big teams to exceed expectations. I like the rights management problem. I'd love to be a part of that solution. I like this workflow automation, business process automation area. And so I just dived into both of those. And it was like the two pillars at that point in my life, this music performance pillar that's created so much development for myself. And all of a sudden I'm working underneath these amazing business mentors who were developing me, right? And helping develop me and teach me so much.
Now, you actually brought us to a great transition there. So you're 6 years in, you've come to this fork in the road, so to say. You've realized that the business side, the operational processes side was something that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. When do you feel like you got to that place and you were like, I can do this. Like, I know that. Like, when you're like, I know this is my thing. I can do this well. Whether it's with business or with the organizations, just constructing people.
You know, it was during those years of 07, 08, and 09, it really, I started understanding how my brain worked. Because I was new into a system that had already been developed in its infancy, and my role was to come in and grow it. And to work with my boss at the time, and then Pat Collins, who was the president of the company at the time, to grow this department. And so I just started realizing that my brain works in this way. And it always had, I just never really been conscious of it. Like when I see a problem, I immediately start thinking about the most efficient ways to execute it. How can we automate this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that was my first time to be working with a team of developers, a team of business users, meaning me and my colleagues in that department, and then our customers, which are the writers and publishers. So it was creating a system in the mind of the customer that worked in the mind of the developer, and being in that role between the two, which I really loved, because I am very much a right and left brain person. And so I love talking to the songwriters and approaching this problem as, well, how do we develop something that is easy to understand for a 25-year-old musician in a van or bus, at the same time documenting all that in these spreadsheets and flowcharts and wireframes that I can communicate it with these genius developers. And so it was really in that period that I started understanding that. And then that provided an opportunity in August of 09 to transition to a position that was created again at CSAC, where they said, we're going to create a senior manager and training program. And basically, I think this was part to create that program for me, part to pacify this young, little over-aggressive, overconfident person that was me, and to keep me in the organization because I think they realized that I had value, but I don't think they exactly knew what to do with me. And they would say those words, we don't exactly know what to do with you, you're a sponge, you keep soaking this stuff up. But ultimately what they created for me was an opportunity to work hand in hand with a father figure type mentor, a guy named Bill Lee, who I love dearly, who was hand in hand with Bill from August 09 until June of 2016, working in, technically, I guess, a senior operations role as very much a process management, project management type of role, and that every year and every day, and just learning more, doing more. To the end, it was cash revenue budgets, expense budgets, offshore workforces, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and very much operations. That whole time, though, Bill and I would have conversations of, this is not all me, man. Like, I love this, but one day I'm going to go use what I'm passionate about to do something, or use what I've learned and I'm learning to do something I'm really passionate about.
Now, from that point, you move here, percussionist, you find your way in, you're part-time, you're playing, you're figuring it out, you join Solid. Everybody I've talked to so far, some point between day one and year 5, they go through that woe is me, poor me phase where they're like, maybe the music business isn't my thing. Like, maybe I should go sell vacuum cleaners or whatever else it is, because there's so much self-doubt that comes with an industry like this. It's hard. Did you ever have one of those where you're like,
man,
I'm out of here, man, I'm not built for this? Or
first of all, I'm thankful that I had one on January 3rd of this year, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
But yes, because those are the gut check moments, man. Those are the forced opportunity to look as deep as you know you can. And I say as you know you can because we all have this expanding consciousness, right? And At least I believe we do. And so one of the first ones, as you're asking me that question, that popped in my head was in the professional musician world. It was the time when I didn't have a smartphone, so I kept a calendar of all my gigs and all this stuff. And I remember the first transition from busy season, which is festival season, which is spring and summer into fall, to winter. And I went from playing 5 to 7 nights a week to playing maybe once, and some weeks none, and thinking, oh my God, I piss everybody off. Like, what happened? Do I suck now? Should I not be doing this? And then another moment was I was out with this amazing artist named James Otto, and we were the opening act for Shania Twain. And it was just a trio, and we were opening up arenas. And it was me on percussion, a guitar player, and James playing acoustic guitar. And I was sharing a room with a guitar player. And super nice guy, super talented, smokes cigarettes. And I had this memory of a smoky hotel room. And he's on, and we had just played the Palace in Auburn Hills, this legendary venue, probably in some nice hotel. And he's tucking his kids in on the phone, who are crying, missing their dad. I don't know if it was his wife or girlfriend or ex-wife. But I remember her not being happy and them having some kind of argument and thinking, do I really want this life? He made the same $400 or $300, whatever we got paid that day, that I did. And so that was an image of, do I want this when I'm 50, right, or 60? Do I want to be schlepping gear or whatever? And it was, again, this work-life balance peeking its head into my decision-making matrix and calculus of, I don't know if I want that, right? The same happened a couple times at CSAC of, all right, I dig this, right? At the same time, though, I'm fully compensated well, we're successful, but this is not mine. Like, I want to go build some teams. And I realize, like, I'm kind of involved in building teams, and I'm a part of great teams, but it was this leader in me and the idea of, I learn a lot about what I want to do when I lead a team from all of my amazing colleagues. And I learn a little bit about what I don't want to do. And as that began to codify in my mind, on top of this still a little over-aggressive, like, frustration, letting this frustration get to me, it was like, all right, man, I know it's time to do something else. And I didn't really know, right? And like I said, I would be frustrated, and then my job would tweak a little bit, and it would be a new project or something. And you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. It would take my mind off the frustration. But it was a couple of these moments of, I don't know if I like this. Even though I love CSAC, I'm thankful I was there. I love everybody I worked with there. They're great people. It was just more of like, what's best for my path?
Yeah.
And
that internal pull.
Exactly. But the internal pull of here, so I'm glad you pulled from here versus here. Right? Because here it can be like, oh, no, you can do this, you probably get that raise and the bonus, you can get this job, other job, you can blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, hold on a minute. What feels right here? And when I really listened there, it wasn't what I was doing. And I think all the time I would know that, but I was afraid. Right? I was afraid to take that leap. I was afraid to trust myself. Right? I was afraid that what I thought were my gifts might not be my gifts. And there was a lot of fear. Right? I think that some of that fear was with me from childhood on other things and insecurities and toxic emotion, right? And it was just manifesting in my adult life. Again, in my life, not CSAC or not Playing's life or any of the amazing people that hired me. It was more just what feels good to me.
Sure.
All right. What at the end of the day makes me smile. Like this morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. loving life. I want that every day.
What, knowing all the things you know now, all the experiences you had, good, bad, and different, if someone could have set you down day one, what do you wish they would have told you before you started your career? Real truth.
Well, relationships word popped in my head, right? And so the word networking I've come to not like. But I always used to hear, it's all about who you know. And I think that is BS because I really think it's all about who knows you. And so the thing I tell most people, or I tell people the most is, especially in the music world, is I have 2 pieces of advice. And that's the 2 pieces I try to live every day. Focus on developing meaningful relationships to position your awesomeness. And then 2, quietly work on your awesomeness to make it as great as you can. And then let the universe take over. Because when I moved here, it was like, hey, hire me. Here's my card. And I saw these people doing that, and that just felt weird to me. I was just like, hey man, I'm Justin. You want to grab a coffee? You want to grab a beer? Like, where are you from? Let's get to know each other. Because I believe that when two people or a group of people get to know each other, there's a lot of growth that happens. Sometimes we're mindful of the growth. Sometimes we're not. And that's okay. Sometimes we're mindful of it 20 years down the road. Damn, Tim really, that resonated with me. Sure. Right? But I think that's powerful. And then if we want to do business together, great. But if not, that's great too, because there's enough business somewhere else to all go around. So I think it was develop relationships versus network was super powerful to me. And, I was thankful to have a family that we were raised in a diverse religious household. My dad's Jewish, my mom's Catholic, and we were raised in the Protestant South. But they raised me talking about the power of our positive mind. And so I try to be a loudspeaker for that, to educate people wherever they are on their learning path about the power that we all have of the positive mind. And so I would deploy that early on in my musical life. I would envision myself on stage performing in front of all these people and feel the emotion of what that felt like, and going to bed in a bunk in a bus and all those things. And just like I do now for the dreams that I've really codified are my dreams. And I think I wish I'd heard more of that in my life, because I heard it from my mom. And my dad, they bought me this amazing book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind that's been like a very cornerstone piece of text in my life. I just wish I'd brought myself around more like-minded people earlier, versus maybe like half of the showcase happy hours I went to. That said, probably wouldn't appreciate it as much now if I didn't.
I understand. It's difficult to have those very open conversations when you're just at a happy hour or with people you're just meeting. But I found the more often that I do it, the more often other people are either feeling that exact same thing or already thinking it. They just don't openly share it. So the more courageous I get, seems to mirror it from other people.
And me too.
Yeah.
I find that the more I am honest with myself, and there's an amazing woman named Brene Brown, and she is, everybody watching this, you should go check her out.
Dare greatly.
Exactly. And she talks about vulnerability, right? And what you just said is you being vulnerable, right? And people respond to that because they feel that, whether they articulate that word in their head or not, they feel you being vulnerable. And so they automatically, that's not a word, automatically feel more comfortable being vulnerable with themselves. So there's like the guard comes down a little bit. And then as that conversation or that relationship goes, the guard continues to go down and go down and go down and go down. And as you know, when you encounter people that are a little more down that learning or self-realization path, you find their guard's already down. I also think whether for you it's God or the universe or quantum physics or whatever it is that you feel like architects things, I feel like the more we go in that direction, we're a magnet, and so these people come into our lives. I remember thinking, man, I want to know all these yogis and stuff in town. That was years ago. Well, now my third bedroom's a yoga studio, and I was at a class last night. I'm going to class today, and these people in my life, and my girlfriend is a Reiki energy healer and a yogi and all these things and a clairvoyant. It's like, okay, these people are in my life. This is amazing, and you know what? I am one of those people, and that my calling of myself and my desire of that was really just my desire to be myself. And to put myself in a situation where I'm the least smart person, the least evolved person in the room. So another golden rule, and I stole this initially from Mark Montgomery, because he would always say, be the dumbest person in the room. And my attitude is, nah, let's not be defeating ourselves. Let's say we're the least smart person in the room. And so that's ultimately always my goal.
From the first second that I met you, you were on stage, and it was my first solid event. Their big annual kickoff, and you said something that was really impactful to me then, and still is now, about bloom where you're planted. And you didn't know this at the time, obviously, you didn't know who I was, but subconsciously, I'd placed the term mentor on you from the stage, and I knew that at some point, I was going to develop a relationship with you. And just over the years, I've been consistently working towards building that relationship, whether we're paddleboarding or having breakfast or whatever. But it was just an impactful thing that stuck with me. And like you said, you had reached out there in the universe, so to say, and you were like, I want to meet these people. You'd already put it out there, whether you were actively working towards it or not. So I'm a 100% believer in that, and here we are.
Thank you. Well, and we must give Carla Wallace from Big Yellow Dog the credit there because we were at lunch one day at 10 something, I don't know. Anyway, 10's Angel, that's it. And I was talking about, I think I'm going to maybe leave CSAC and manage this great group, Sam and Ruby, blah, 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 and all these other things. And whatever she said, she would bloom where you're planted. I'm like, whoa, that's heavy. So what you're really saying is don't leave, man. You should bloom where you're planted. And I've given that advice out to other people, so I'm glad it resonated with you, and it still resonates with me today. Also, what that means is trust yourself, right? Listen, get out of here. Do what your heart feels right, because usually that's going to tell you the path to most development and self-realization.
A lot of that I've seen, and when I'm speaking at universities or what have you, everyone has this, how do I get an agent? How do I get a label? How do I get all these things? There's this gut feeling that they have, and we all have this instinct, but I'm like, instinct is great, and it's going to get you there, but when are you perfecting craft?
Yeah.
You know, get it all in path, and then go.
Totally.
Bloom where you're planted, but master it and then go to the next step.
That's it, man.
Now, the next step, sometimes we can figure it out, and I tend to learn the hard way. I have to touch the stove eye to know it's hot, even though a lot of people can tell me, and I wish I would have taken the path of talking to more mentors earlier in my career and in my life. Who are some of the people, and I know you mentioned one earlier, who are some of the mentors you have now, or some of the people that just really helped you get to the next places in life over the last 18 years?
Wow, so many. Pete Fisher, Doug Howard, Bill Lee, those are huge. My dad, right? The conversations with my dad have been monumental shifts in my life. There's a handful of them. My intuition, right? I feel like my higher self, our higher selves, know a lot more than we think we know, right? So part of it's been learning to quiet my thinking mind to tap into my feeling mind or my higher mind. And, a lot of different philosophies call that something different. Those are some of the big ones. Pat Collins at CSAC was a big one. I even told him my last couple days there, saying, you taught me so much about how I want to run an organization. You also taught me a couple things about how I would maybe choose to do them differently. I think all of those are powerful lessons. Today, there are a handful of mentors in my life in this direction I'm stepping into. You mentioned a podcast. I'm going to be publishing a book, and ultimately, I'm answering the question that I'll ask in a minute. But in this world, I've been saying, man, I want some mentors in this world. Because once I left CSAC, one of the things I really missed was working with mentors on a daily basis. And so I realized, one, quiet your mind, because you have mentors that can speak to you through your intuition. Two, just be open. So I started going to more spiritual type of events and meeting new different types of folks, and going to my existing network to say, here's what I'm looking to do, and I'm looking to develop in this way. Any blogs you think I should read, or people you think I should meet, or conferences I should go to, etc. And it was the first time I started going to my network for me versus a nonprofit or whatever board I was raising money for, and it was really great.
We had a long conversation about that once, about how we had both spent years here building, relationships in a network, but we had never activated it.
Yeah. Part of that was my fear.
Yeah.
Part of it's still fear, right? That I'm still learning to grow out of. I'm happy to say, though, that every time I've now gone to my network to ask for anything for myself, I've gotten way more than I've asked for. And that could be in the tangible things I asked for, if not personal growth and development in whichever way, and it feels really good. That's the area, though, that I want to continue to be more comfortable at, right, is to go to my network to ask for help, to say, I'm going to reach for my joy, and I'm reaching for my dreams. Excuse me, I would love your help in any way that you think you can help.
That's why we're here. I'm following suit.
Yeah, man, that's
for
awesome.
years, I've been wanting to do a video series like this, and fear kept stopping me. I'd find an excuse to not do it. And I've been probably 2 years thinking about it. But I had some real clear moments over vacation this year, and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask. And, to my own surprise, I think 100% of the people that I reached out to, some that I sort of knew and some I knew incredibly well, all said yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Imagine what I could have accomplished over the last 2 years if I had gotten out of my own way and stayed in tune with source.
Well, that's it, man. That's another golden rule, is to get out of our own way, right? And I keep getting back to the ego. The ego can keep us in our way a lot. And that's okay, because I think maybe we need to learn those lessons before we can truly move on. A percussion mentor of mine early on said, Justin, you're always going to be in this stage of your life until you learn what it is that you need to learn in this stage. No matter how much you put your hand on it, meaning no matter how much you try to change, you're not going to leave this place of your life until you learn what you're supposed to learn. So to you, I would say, well, maybe it wasn't time yet. For me, all that frustration I needed to have at CSAC was not about CSAC. It was about me not being on my path. But I needed to experience that so that in my later career and life and forward, I can help other people have the courage and be inspired to make that leap.
Sure.
One of the folks that is a current mentor is a guy named Jim Rink, and I met him through someone I serve on the Leadership Music Board with. And we met, and he's this amazing soul. One of the first things he said to me was, Justin, there are millions of people all over the world that are looking for your story. They just don't know who you are. And I want to help them reach you. Because I think you have the power to impact a lot of these people in a positive way. And we're talking later in that conversation about CSAC and kind of my frustrations for I don't know if I want this corporate job anymore. I feel I want to go do this. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how, I got to pay my bills. And he said, Justin, leaving CSAC is going to be a part of your journey and part of your story that is important, because everybody or a large group of people that you're going to come in contact with, everybody's got a CSAC. Everybody's got that thing that's really great that's not necessarily in line with their dreams, full long term, or what they want their days to be like. And so I give him a lot of credit, because it's wow. And all of a sudden made me look at something that before that meeting, that breakfast, was a source of frustration. All of a sudden, oh, well, this is actually a gift and a tool. So my perception of that, or perspective, changed.
You nailed it. For the last year, I really felt it, a leveling up for myself. And I spoke with a lot of friends and colleagues and mentors, and a friend that's both of ours, Robbie Goldsmith, and a few others. I was like, I feel like I'm sprouting my Mario tail. Like I'm about to level up. What do I read? What are you eating for breakfast? What are you doing? What's your circle? Just trying to absorb all the tools I needed to get to the place that I felt like I was being drawn to go.
Yep.
So basing it on that, I've realized that all the things that I've learned the hard way, all the information that I've asked from people, and some that's been bestowed on me luckily, and others that I figured out the hard way, I'm a big component, a big believer of the component of the 80-20 rule. What would you say your 20% of effort got your 80% of results, whether it's your decision-making process to do those things, getting to a place where you know yourself better, leading others, whatever that is, that you've seen the biggest results come from a very specific, focused effort?
Wow. It's all about my mind. It's all about the power of positivity to me, right? It's learning how to use the gift of our mind and positivity to manifest peace and the win or success that we want. That has been the biggest thing. I can also break it down, I would say, in a less ethereal thing. It's that mindset of mastery. When I was teaching high school percussion, this is 2000, 2001, this is when that phrase came to me, or at least those words. And it's the idea that everything you put your name on, you should try to do as great as you can. So that means in the business world, every spreadsheet and budget you do, triple, quadruple, check it, make it perfect as you can. Every email, no punctuation, no this. When you are cooking, cook the most flavorful meal you can, right? When you're making love, make the most passionate love that you can. When you're practicing your instrument, practice as perfectly as you can. And so that your brand is associated with as high a quality as you can, knowing that nobody's perfect. But for me, that word perfect is not like a promise of something that's never achievable. It's just like where my mind goes, that I have trust in this perfect order, that I'm going to try to just do this as great as I can. And so I think that is super huge. And mastery. And even the idea when I would get called for a gig and I couldn't do it as a percussionist, well, the insecure move is to suggest someone that may not be as accomplished as you, right? But that's not the right move. The mastery move is to call your mentor for the gig, right? Because you may lose the gig to your mentor. Most of the time you're not, but you may. But I'd much rather that person say, oh, I called Justin, he couldn't do the gig, but man, he got me this guy named Tom Rohde, and he killed it. It was amazing. Versus, yeah, he couldn't do it, and he got me this guy, and it's just, it didn't work out well.
Sure.
I don't want that.
Now, you touched something that was a real challenge for me growing up or coming up in the industry, and that was the shame spiral we get stuck in when we chase the perfect, when we chase that perfection. And the slightest thing that's not, for me personally, man, it would take me down. So I had a real challenge kind of breaking through to the next thing because I realized my self-talk had become incredibly negative. So I had to change how I did it. And one of the things I really focused on was all the I ams. You know, and I wrote this big board. It's about 32 square feet in my bedroom, and it's I'm at the right place doing the right things. I'm happy, I'm grateful, I'm gracious. Even though I may not have felt that at the time when I created it, I still read it every day till I get to the place where I could work on mastery. Now, some of the self-doubt things you mentioned earlier and some of the fear, how have you used those things to kind of master, to focus on your mastery? What tools have you used to help you get clear?
I mean, I go back to a lot of meditation and the mind, and a thing that I call judge-free affirmations. So not my philosophy as far as positive affirmations. Dr. Joseph Murphy is an amazing author and scholar, and a lot of other people in that world. For me, it was taking that and turning it to a judge-free affirmation. And I really started understanding the power of it when I was in really the bulk of my cancer treatment. Because I realized that I was made for this cancer journey. I had been preparing for it, and all of my use of the mind, of positivity, of cultivating a condition of positivity and a culture of positivity in myself. The first words when 5 doctors walked in to tell me I had a brain tumor in my ER room, I was by myself. I said, this is going to be the most amazing positive experience of my life. I'm going to help so many people through this experience, and this does not happen to someone like me in this way for no reason.
Sure.
All right.
Well, let's not skip too far ahead. For everyone watching, Justin was just living life, doing his thing. Now, you catch me up on what I'm missing here, and then what happens? You go to work one morning, and
I tell the story like this. In the music industry, you'll get this. It's a normal Monday post Super Bowl party kind of day. I was hungover. I was planning dinner to cook for my friends DP and Jacoby, and my last memory was 12:06 on my little Windows computer. And then my next memory was 40 minutes later, waking up on my office floor surrounded by paramedics. At the exact moment that I later learned I started having a seizure, I'm at my computer, my boss's assistant walks by the office door, sees me falling backwards out of the chair, sets this whole thing in motion, saves my life. I say saves my life because if you walk by and don't see me in my office, it's no big deal. I'm at a meeting, I'm at lunch, I'm this or that. And then a quick ambulance ride over to Vanderbilt with one of the mentors I mentioned, Bill Lee, and found out I had, at the time, they thought an egg-sized tumor in my head. Later, that they found out it was about a tennis ball-sized tumor. And so 2.5 weeks from that point, that was February 3rd, 2014, when I had a seizure. February 20th was surgery. I had a craniotomy, which I always thought of. Remember that movie Half Baked? Doctor said I need a bacchiotomy. That's what I kept thinking about. I was like, man, I'm about to have a craniotomy. That's weird. Anyway, had a craniotomy. Learned out that I have a, quote, the best kind of brain cancer you can have. They think I'll live into my 90s before it tries to grow back. Because the whole time they would tell me that I am an effing unicorn. I mean, like, you're not supposed to be this positive, man. Like, we just told you have cancer. And I'm smiling about it. Because I knew in my heart this was the growth. And I didn't wrap the word growth around it at the time, but I knew, and I say I knew because I've been documenting this whole thing, I've been talking about using this experience in service of other people for 4 years, right? And because I'm 4 years out of all this stuff and super healthy. So I kind of forget the exact question, but like using the tools and going back to those tools, I had been doing it my whole life. All of a sudden now with cancer, well, let me just say, like, I had been visualizing myself on stage in that chapter. I had been visualizing myself leading successful teams, having meetings with my bosses and showing all the numbers in the black, right? Like all the successes. And all of a sudden I'd been realizing those things. Now I was using these tools to manage my anxiety, to heal myself. So I created mantras, the only thing I know to do. The first thing was, I had this vision of waking up in recovery, flirting with the nurses, and being aroused. And I say that because I think it's important to understand the picture. Because I had been told you may be paralyzed from the waist down because of where this tumor is. There's also a chance you may not survive surgery, right? And there's a chance that you may not have your full personality back. It may affect this area and this area and this other area. Well, I didn't worry about all this stuff. I focused on what's the outcome. Because what that picture said is, one, you're alive. Two, you have a personality, because I never meet a person that I'm not flirting with or getting to know or whatever. And if I'm aroused, that means I'm not paralyzed. And as a 35-year-old single man, that was one of the first things I was thinking about. I was like, damn.
That's fascinating. Walk me through, what's your mental picture? How do you go through that and keep something when there's this much fear, there's this much unknown that's pressing on you, to force through that and get that type of clarity? How do you hold an image like that?
I paint a picture. And so I use multiple techniques. One, I use the words, because I believe the droning, repetitive words are impactful. But really, emotions are more impactful than words. So I paint a picture on the wall of my mind, right? And that picture is what I want. And I can see it so clearly right now. And so that picture was me in like some uncomfortable little hospital gown, flirting with a beautiful woman next to me who is my recovery room nurse. And then having like the literal feeling of like, oh, I'm aroused, I'm alive, I'm this. And then paint the picture and then attach emotions to that picture. All right, how does that feel? Well, I feel excited, I feel super happy, I feel alive, which means I'm feeling all these different kind of emotions. And then I go back there, right? And then so in that 2.5 weeks between seizure and surgery, I kept oscillating back to there. Anxiety, no, bring it back here. And then I also talk about a tribe of positivity. So everybody in my tribe, family, close friends, right? We're all talking about that picture, right? So much so that my dad had my phone, and his first Facebook post on my page that morning was something about Justin's in recovery, flirting with the nurses or something like that. The surgeon said it went, very well. And so it's bringing all of that together to create that picture of that. That's one of the ways I would do it. So it's focusing on the emotion.
I remember this was sometime after surgery, and you were just kind of getting back out there. Mm-hmm. And we went and caught up, and it had been a while since I'd seen you, but we talked about morning rituals. And I don't think we'd ever actually had a real conversation, nothing like that. And I was into it at that time, like really getting back in tune with myself and figuring out next steps. And we had this incredibly powerful breakfast. Mm-hmm. And we talked about morning rituals and conversations with ourselves and, mentally holding images. And I was finding that I was having a tough time mentally painting. So what I started doing was physically painting. Then it was much easier for me to be able to do that. Are you still practicing that now?
Yeah, I love spreadsheets. So I immediately made a spreadsheet. It's still on my desktop, Justin's Morning Kickstart or Daily Kickstart. And so I just had a list of things that I wanted to make sure I do. Now I do a lot of them all throughout the day, so I don't keep an actual list because I just know I do them. But what it really is, like, I hold my mornings sacred. And I hold time for myself sacred in my life. All right, I can say yes to too many things, right? But not say yes to myself enough. So these things of morning meditations, a grateful, mindful, thankful moment every day, feel my dreams every day, exercise. At the time, I had a stack of thank you notes to write. So it was like write one thank you note every single day. I definitely do all those things. This morning, I had dreams of, I've been sitting for 30 minutes, like I told you, and I was going to go meditate. Instead, I just laid in bed and meditated. My girlfriend didn't want to wake up, and so I just laid and meditated. I've been working with a holistic chiropractor, so I went through some of those exercises. But that morning, that was super inspiring. When you were talking, thankfully, about me, connecting with you on stage that day, I immediately thought about that morning kickstart. And it's so, it's been a part of my life. Like, I've been writing my first book, and this first book is a collection of blogs from Cancer Journey with current reflections and thoughts, etc., articulating kind of 5 principles that I approach my life through as far as the science of the mind. Mm-hmm. And one of those is talking about this kickstart, right, of how that was super impactful, because I wrote about it in my blog at the time, because it was really a powerful thing. And I think it's something that anybody who likes to write things down will connect with. And I like to write them down and paint the picture in my mind. I think the picture makes it easier a little bit to feel the emotion for me. But the important thing is, whether it's words or an image or both, feeling that emotion of your win.
Feeling. Yeah. Sometimes it's harder to get there. We talked about it a little earlier. That it took me a week on vacation to get in touch with a feeling of gratitude. But once I did, I was back, felt centered, felt ready, felt focused, ready for the next year. Which kind of brings me to a nice transition. 18 years, multiple changes, cancer, career change, life shifts, relationship shifts, all these things. Tell me about the next chapter.
Well, the next chapter, we're living it. I now know that my passion is to help teach and inspire people to live a more balanced and joyful life. And I'm answering my own question. For years, I would sit down with anybody who ever wanted to sit down with me for mentorship or guidance or just hanging out, and I would ask them one question if they were like having a struggle with what to do. You have $100 million in the bank. You can go on vacation 4 months a year. Clearly, with $100 million, like your great grandkids never need money, but you have to have a job for 8 months. What's your job? Well, before cancer, I would tell you my job, my dream job, would be to teach people about the power of the positive mind and to be able to inspire people. I had even sat down with inspirational speakers and authors and trying to figure out how to get into that world. And now I would tell you the answer to that question is I want to help people be more awesome than they think they can be. And I want to do that by helping them tap into their intuition and learn how to use the power of the mind, power of a nutritious, balanced diet, mindful activity and exercise, etc., to be better. All right? And so what I'm working to create is a community of people to basically say, hey, here's what I've learned, and here's who I've learned it from. Here's how it's impacted my life. It's helped me a lot. Perhaps it may help you. Come on with us and walk on this journey as we learn together, and let's be better. So I hope to be a creator of inspirational content and also a curator of inspirational content that is in every way actionable. I have no desire to be in the world of like talking heads above people's heads. Like I want it to be actionable. And so that is what I'm working to execute right now. And through a book tour with workshop tours associated with that, working with folks, going to be launching a podcast, which is part of that curator part of that thing of, let's bring all these other really awesome people in and like learn from them, right? And also sharing my own story to be in service and help other people. Tactically, I want to help individuals and organizations achieve more. I love the idea of helping organizations. I love the idea of helping individuals. And it's really finding a way, like my number one business goal this year is to fully support myself and family or greater through the work of me, right? Through the work of me, and that doesn't mean all about me, but through the work of me and my passion and my joy. You heard me say it earlier that the music industry for me and music in general is a super powerful force. The two most powerful forces in my life are love and music. And they always have been. It's been more recent that I've realized the power of love in my life as I've learned to love myself more. But I know that those are the most powerful forces in my life, and those I want to be involved in. I'm just pretty sure that picture I had in my head of like this music executive or this freelance percussionist on stage or in the studio is not what I want. And I've been saying, like, I think music industry is this amazing, beautiful woman that I came to the dance with. And I believe I'm going to dance off into the sunset with someone else. And so this is the career I'm working to develop. I'm currently managing an artist, Daphne Willis, who's an amazing inspirational soul that is very much congruent with my passion for helping others because she has this huge mission and a big reach for helping others. At the same time, I like helping her execute and logistics and organize and all the different things around her career. If I need to step off the team someday because I'm too busy doing my thing, I'm no ego there. I'm all about it, and we'll be friends or colleagues or whatever it is.
Sure.
So it's really just stepping out to do that.
You touched on an important thing there, and I see it a lot, whether it's high school or college kids chasing the dream, or people that have been 5, 7, even 10 years into the industry. They're so focused on the music industry executive or whatever their dream was that they started, that they miss the shiny peripheral thing that's going to change their dream, and understanding that it's perfectly fine that dreams change. You're probably supposed to be over here to begin with, but you had to step on these other stones in order to get across. That's great. So what have you not done yet that you want to accomplish? I know outside of podcasts, outside of inspiration, outside of author, are there things out there that you're like, I really want to learn to do this thing?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is a loving relationship. I have an amazing girlfriend. She actually just moved in with me this past weekend, which is the first time I've ever lived with a woman in my life.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. It's a big deal. And her little kitty moved in, which a year ago when I met her, I'm like, this cat's never moving in. Now I love the cat. The cat's there. I want to be better at being in love, which means to love myself more and to fully grow in my intimate life. For a long time, I held love out like that. I was very comfortable with the casual, very comfortable with no attachment, occasionally comfortable with relationships, but not ever with the woman that I'm with now, right? The woman that probably I'm supposed to be with long term. I've dated amazing women, but never maybe the right one. So I really want that. I felt that the lack of love in myself and my personal life has been a toxic thing for many, 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 many years, that I didn't realize the negative effects of it. So my ultimate goal, business is easy. You can always go get a job and pay your mortgage. I want to be able to love myself fully so that I can love her fully and be in that relationship. And that is new for me, and that's growth for me, because it was always focused on the achievement and that. And ultimately now it's all about the compassion for self and someone else.
As I'm growing and learning myself, I found that I'm a lot more flexible and open to things, but I also found that I'm much more protective of my time and like you touched on there, my love for myself. Are there any like daily undebatables? Like before all this other, I have to have this for me.
Healthy breakfast, 100%. Yeah. This morning before I came here, 2 eggs and coconut oil, kale, and a half an avocado. After I chugged 2 glasses of lemon water before that to get my body started. Like 3 years ago, if you had told me I'm going to voluntarily eat kale for breakfast, I would have told you you're high. Like, I'll get up sometimes. First thing I do is roast a whole head of cauliflower so I can get it in the oven while I meditate, and then it'll be ready to go for breakfast when I'm done. So it's a super healthy breakfast. It's some type of morning exercise and or mindful practice. Those are have-tos for me because it starts the day off in a clear space. Other than that, I love doing numbers. I love numbers in general, but I love doing a lot of detail-oriented work in the morning. So I try to carve out some space there to do that because by the end of the day, I want to be more in my creative space, a little more relaxed, I think, in my mind. But those are the 2 main things. There's always something to do in the evenings, as you know. It's like an event, a happy hour, a concert, a dinner, or this. So I really try to get everything I know I really want to do for myself done in the morning. And it's food, exercise, meditation, shower.
Sure. What have you named the podcast? Have you got the book down? Do you know?
I haven't. So it's been in draft. Yesterday, I was the least smart person in the room last week, and one of the guys was. He says because there's been a couple draft titles of the book. I had this hashtag going during the time it is brain surgery when I started this blog. So the idea was maybe it was brain cancer. Now the other idea that came out this week that I like, I'm just not there yet, of something like from brain cancer to something. Right? I don't know exactly what that is.
So you're still in the process.
I'm in the process of it. A really inspiring guy I met once recently was like, you should call the podcast The Unicorn because the doctors all told me I was a unicorn. I was like, I don't know. So I don't exactly have that nailed down. I've gone and cleaned up all my socials. No more party pics, no more this. Everything else is everything on brand going forward. Don't have it figured out yet. Still in development.
That's the fun part of it, though.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I said, I've had 2 years of figuring out what in the world I was going to call this thing. And after all the stewing and scratching and tossing paper across the room, I just woke up one morning at 3 a.m. and I was like, I got it.
Totally.
Yeah.
My first client was an amazing soul named Bonnie Bishop, and we're at dinner, and my attorney was there, and we're at my house, and we're just hanging, and I needed to come up with a legal entity because they needed to incorporate me or whatever. And I was like, man, I don't know. And my old condo downtown for years was Lev's Lounge. That's what people called it. It was even a Foursquare check-in when that was a thing. And my dad had bought me these little leather Lev's Lounge coasters. So they were sitting on the table, and my client at the time, Bonnie, said, I think it should be Lev's house. Because she drew a picture of a house with 4 windows, and like there could be a speaking window, and like a management window, and a book window, and this, and she drew this little logo. I'm like, oh, I definitely saved that. And that's why my entity is Lev's House Entertainment. So I feel like And who cares what that's called? That's really just like to run everything through. But I think it's probably going to have something like that. Like we were at lunch, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to call it was brain cancer. He's like, man, I don't know. What about from brain cancer to something? I was like, I don't know, from brain cancer to bliss, from self-realization. Oh, so we're down this brainstorm road. No pun intended.
Okay. We're getting close here to wrapping it up, but I want to fire off some things, get your input on it. It's still so young in the filming of this series that I'm not entirely sure who all of our viewers are going to be at, what the demo is going to be.
Yeah.
So I want to try to, all of our guests at least touch on who I'm hoping will be watching. So one quick piece of advice for each. Someone working in the music or the creative industry that's looking to level up. And that's either personally, soulfully, skillfully, intellectually. They've hit that plateau.
Yeah, so I think keep your goal in mind, whatever the goal of leveling up, whatever that goal is, and find people around you that can help pull you up while you stand up. So that would be a mentor, a musician, a different producer, a different job. But the first thing I was going to say, though, is make sure your house is fully in order in the situation you're in. Because the worst thing that happens is you try to level up and your stuff's not together.
We talked about that earlier, about making sure your cup is full.
Yeah.
And I constantly work on it. As an entrepreneur, your day becomes quickly putting out fires and making sure you're pouring into other people's cups. And you've done this incredibly well. How do you keep your cup full?
It means through all of the above, right? It's through surrounding myself with amazing people that keep me inspired, through seeking out information and other inspiration, whether that be blogs, books, speakers, etc., and surrounding myself with amazing folks. At the same time, listening to myself. The other thing I just wanted to go back to your first question real quick is to be strategic. That if you see, I want this coming up in my path, to think about what may play into your development to get there. And many times it's not a straight line, and that's okay. But I know that if I ultimately want to be in that position, I know I need this set of skill sets or experiences to be in that position. So let me make sure that I'm doing what I can do to build that repertory of skill sets, experiences, relationships, etc., that I believe are going to help support me in that role.
Great. Second one, artist, band, they're grinding, they're fighting the good fight, they're doing all the things, learning, writing, touring, dope merch, all the stuff. But it's just not quite at the next level. Advice for that.
How do you grow through this, right? Everybody's, waste smells. So how can yours be better, right? Should you bring other writers in the room? Should you write different songs? Should you get a new producer? Should you, whatever, but take it to the fans. That if your live show is energetic and compelling, you will grow a touring business. You grow a touring business, you have people, your streaming business is growing, your YouTube business is growing, etc. And then make sure you're executing fully all the free tools. Facebook Lives, Facebook fan communities, YouTube, Instagram stories with the swipe up, all the things that are on brand for you, max them out and prioritize those over beers with your friends. So it's the free tools help propel you and ultimately build this community. You've seen it. You're as powerful as like your hard tickets in the touring. Where like, well, how many hard tickets you worth in this month, right? But ultimately it's the relationship you have with your fans. All right.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Same question. As far as piece of advice, someone who's diligently worked on the processes so much and understands operations, an entrepreneur that's trying to level up.
What are you passionate about? What's your purpose in life? Those two things, right? I talked about Jim Rink. He speaks a lot about purpose and helping college graduates to mid-30s really identify and execute life centered around their purpose. What's your purpose? It's usually tied to some event in your life where you felt inspired, connected, where you felt like you were in total sync with the world and your development in this world. So align your purpose with your passions and your experiences, right? The experiences, what you said, is like the process development and the mind and the organization, all that. What are you passionate about, right? And then how does that in line with your purpose in life that you feel like from a greater life purpose? Within there are different magic opportunities.
Sure.
For me, I love business operations. So anything I need to do operation-wise for my business is like done, right? I love helping people. That's why I volunteered for all these nonprofit boards and always show up for everything. I love being involved. I love creating community, right? I love knowing that what we're doing is having a greater impact, bigger than ourselves.
It took me a while to dive into what my superpowers were, the things that I absolutely loved the most. And thank goodness I've been able to build a company around my biggest passions. But it's difficult to find out what your superpowers are. Any advice for someone who's trying to figure out what their superpowers are?
Yeah, I think look in your life and kind of taking a few moments or however long it takes to look at those moments in your life where you felt in the groove. Like, what are you doing? Like in those moments, like are you working? Are you playing? Are you singing? Are you creating marketing strategies? Like what is it? And I think when we're really quiet, we can do that. Like we can identify those moments of like, oh, that was great. Like I left that office that day and it was just like, man, it's like palpable feeling of success. I think those moments, try to really isolate those moments and then, all right, then you shift. Phase one, identify, how do I go recreate that? What are the environments, the relationships, the jobs, the cities, the projects, et cetera, I need to be involved in, the roles, the board positions, et cetera, to have more of those moments in my life?
Absolutely. One thing I've been asking everybody, which is just, it's actually way off topic, but I found it incredibly interesting. Do you remember the first album that you ever purchased?
Belle Biv DeVoe just popped in my head. I think it was Belle Biv DeVoe. I don't know if anybody even watching this remembers them. Also, the thing that popped in my head was a Debbie Gibson concert review from her Birmingham concert in the 80s. And I was so sad I couldn't go, but I had the newspaper clipped out on my wall. Love Debbie Gibson. And Belle Biv DeVoe pops in my head and Criss Cross.
Was that like you're opening, you're reading the liner notes, you got your LP out? Or were you
CD.
CD. Okay, so that was your first CD.
Yeah.
Were you a tape guy too? Did you have like cassette
I had
tapes?
tapes, but I don't remember tapes much. I got more into tapes later when it was like dubbing live performances from jazz clubs or other stuff that was probably illegal. Yeah.
Do you remember your first song that you downloaded?
Wow. First? Well, it was on Napster. Sorry.
Yeah. What nobody does is where I'm going.
Yeah.
How about the first song that you streamed?
No.
Exactly. I don't know why that is. It's such something about holding it and owning it changes your perspective. We just had a really in-depth conversation with a buddy the other day, and no one in the circle remembered their first download. And I was like, that's really interesting. I wonder what kind of impact that's going to have long term.
I don't remember it. But I do know that when my Apple TV comes up and it goes across iTunes, the last record I bought was a Florida Georgia Line record, Dig Your Roots. So some people come over, they're like, bro, what's that record doing, bro? And I'm like, first of all, they're nice guys and they're talented, but so that always shows up on my big TV of like, Florida Georgia Line, Dig Your Roots.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All the things you've done, all the people's lives you touched, it ends tomorrow. It's done. That's it. Justin's a wrap. What legacy do you hope you've left behind up to this point?
I hope that I've taught at least one person that we all have the power to manifest the life of our dreams, right? That would be the one thing that I hope when people read my writing or they watch whatever content or they have coffee with me, that they understand that they have a greater power than they've realized. Because I know that there's a greater power in me that I have yet to realize. So it's that. It's knowing that no matter what we face, we have the power within ourselves to make that less stressful, less anxious, more blissful, more joyful in those moments. And in the greater picture of our life, we have the power to bring in whatever we want into our life. We have that power.
Wow. That's powerful.
It is.
What's the secret? So I hear it all the time in conversations, and I'm guilty of it too. Meeting people that I've bestowed that are further along than me, and I give them this pedestal. You know, I'm always pining, reaching, what's the answer? What's the secret? What's the secret? And I've come to find out there's a bunch of different answers to that, but I'm really fascinated about what your answer is going to be and what is the secret to happiness, to success, to life for you?
Two-part. One, there is no one secret. The other side of that is be as balanced and happy as you can. Do what you want to do and do it as great as you can.
What is the one most impactful piece of advice you've ever received?
From my parents. If you can think it, you can have it. I now say, if you can see it, you can have it. But if you can think it, you can have it. It's sitting right underneath my computer at home. If you can think it, you can have it.
That's, I tell you, it works.
It works.
It works.
I'm alive because of it.
You can't argue with the results if you do it, you know?
Totally.
You touched on, the whole premise is the golden rules of life and business, and I hope we've done a good job of covering that today. But I want to kind of dig in, and you touched on it a few different times about work-life balance. And I'm terrible at a work-life balance, but it's not because I'm a workaholic. My day is just like that. I'm so passionate, I'm so enthralled with what I'm doing that I just tend to work a lot. So I decided, instead of approaching it as vaguely as work and life, to really try to dig it down into 4 key components called form. So what would you think a golden rule for each one of these for you is? The golden rules for family.
For family, lean in with your heart, don't judge them, and understand the value they bring to your life.
Okay. Golden rules for occupation.
Find a great opportunity to leverage your strengths, which inherently mean that you enjoy them, with an organization or a job that is as closely aligned to your purpose in life as you can.
Golden rules for recreation.
Do it a lot. Party just as hard as you work. Celebrate life at every opportunity.
And golden rules for motivation.
Be a seeker, right? Find people that inspire you and motivate you, and you do that by listening to yourself and asking questions. Mr. Google, Mrs. Google. Be a seeker. Go find. Go be in search, whether that's just in your mind or physically be in search of that. I think that's it.
Okay. Now, the way I'm going to work this out with all my guests is a final thought, and sort of the same approach as earlier. This is the last time anyone's going to hear from you. It's this recording, and you get an opportunity to share your truth. Whatever that truth may be, things you've learned in life, things that you're focused on now, your loves, your losses, your inspirations, whatever. What would you share with anybody watching, whether it's family, your loved ones, colleagues, future people that will find your content out there on the planet?
Love yourself as fully as you can, and then love yourself a little bit more. Know that you have the power to manifest anything in life that you dream to bring into your life. Enjoy the ride, man and woman, and just smile and be at peace.
Bang. This for anybody that's trying to follow a dream. No holding back, you'll get it by any means. Idols on the wall, you cut out from magazines. Full of self-esteem, nobody can intervene. Ready for the shine, you never needed a shade. This is for the boss that never gave you a raise. This is for every time you ever tried to create and no one understood, they never gave you the space. Walking up to you, they trying to give you the crown. Look into your eyes and tell you one of us. Every time you turn around and face the crowd, be ready cause your time is now. It's my time, I thought they would've told you.
But cancer, the thing that I had feared the most, side note, the thing that my mind had been working to manifest the most, was in my life. And all of a sudden, I felt prepared for it, right? I felt like I got this. And chemo, radiation for about 15 or 16 months. And it was the true test of what I had been learning about my mind. And when I said I was made for it, I feel like I had been learning all the skills and practicing these skills by teaching and by using and reusing and reteaching to save my life, right? Because I believe I'm alive because of Vanderbilt and amazing medical science and because of my mind.